we're just cattle, right? If that's the case, then everything is pointless.
Once in a blue moon, under the glimmer of a glowing screen, a shimmer of hope flashes bright, but it's gone way too soon. Take me away from here, kill off my anxieties, show me the light of day, 'cause I have no priorities. Take me away from here, kill off my anxieties, show me the light of day, 'cause I have no priorities.
Welcome back to Sparky Speaks. If you're new, if not, welcome back. Obviously, this isn't going to be a very fun video based off of the title. I'll be talking about my experiences and relating them back to the bee pill, while also being a doomer in general. I might lose some of y'all, but that's okay, because I feel like this is something that needs to be talked about. If it does bother you, I would at least like you to hear me out before you unsubscribe. I cannot deny my connection to the BP and Doomer communities though, especially not after being shouted out by No Roads Left. If you came here from his channel, you might like this video. I don't agree with everything he has to say, but I do relate to some of the things that he talks about. Really, if I had to describe this channel, it's a weird mix of channels like Girl Shroom, who I've been watching a lot of recently, Tragic Reality, and Excess Saiyan. While we're here, I just want to shout out Excess Saiyan again, as well as one of my first subscribers, Subhuman Rambler. If you like No Roads Left or Excess Saiyan, you'll probably like him too. He makes very similar content, and it's a shame that he only has 27 subs at the time of recording this video. You know, it's really strange that a queer person like myself is accepted by some of the folks in the BP space. That particular community does not have a very good track record of being accepting of LGBTQ people, or so I've been told. Ironically, my own experience with coming out played a role in why I became interested in some of the ideas in the first place. I do hope to explain how and why that happened in this video, but I'm not apologizing either. While I am going to disagree with the BP at certain points, especially when it comes to the more misogynistic aspects of the philosophy, I cannot honestly say that I rebuke it entirely. Despite that last sentence, my first antidote does involve a woman, but not all of them will. It's not every day that I make friends in the middle of the ski slope. Usually someone will come up to me and say something like, "Wow, you're really good at turning," or something along those lines. But once we get past the usual small talk, the conversation just straight up dies. And I have no idea why this happens. However, there was one time when it didn't. This one dude who we'll call Bill Stevenson in reference to the Descendants drummer was really amazed at how I was traversing one of the 90-degree bends in the trail by making one smooth arc. He came up to me and started a conversation, and we ended up riding the lift together. After the usual small talk, he actually took an interest in me beyond skiing. We started talking about what music we liked, and it turned out that we both played music as well. We hit it off, and I ended up coming over to his house, and we jammed together with him on drums and me on guitar. Needless to say, I really respect the guy for giving me the time of day. However, not everyone felt the same way about him. Enter Neurotica. Neurotica is this chick I grew up skiing with, and we happened to go to the same college as well. One night, Bill and I ran into her, and I introduced her and her little cousins to Bill, and we ended up riding up on the chairlift together. I thought everything was fine. Bill made some small talk with Neurotica and asked her some general questions about skiing. Nothing out of the ordinary, right? We went our separate ways at the top of the mountain. A couple of runs later, we ran into each other again. I watched in horror as one of Neurotica's little cousins shot off the side of the aforementioned 90-degree bend and had a big yard sale in the woods. Bill and I stopped to make sure he was all right. Neurotica, who wasn't far behind us, stopped as well, and I helped her get him and his gear out of the woods. While she was helping him put his skis on, the other little cousin came up to me and asked, Why is your friend a creep? I was a bit taken aback, so I asked, what do you mean? Neurotica says he's creepy. I don't know. I don't think he's a creep. I'm not sure why she thinks that of him. That little exchange was the first time I realized that you don't have to do something wrong for someone to dislike you. If you're in the BP space, your first instinct might be to assume that he's a sub-5 or an oofy doofy, and that's why she was repulsed by him. While I don't like to assign numbers to people's attractiveness, as I feel this only adds to the shallowness of the world, I can't but help but think there might be some truth to the underlying idea. Not that Bill is objectively unattractive, or that there is some universal scale to determine who people should be attracted to, but simply that she may have found him unattractive on a personal level. Honestly, I cannot think of any other reason why she would go as far as to call him a creep. If it was because of the social interaction itself, it wouldn't make any sense. Bill seemed to be relatively normal to me. Also, Neurotica enjoys talking to my father and has stated that he's a sweet man, and yet I don't see that big of a difference between my dad's interactions with her and the interactions with her and Bill. It's still possible that I'm missing something, but trying to come up with a different conclusion leaves me scratching my head. If I'm right, and there are people shallow enough to go as far as calling someone a creep simply because they aren't personally attracted to them, it really bothers me. Just because you aren't attracted to someone doesn't give you the right to denigrate their character. This wasn't the only unpleasant run-in I've had with Neurotica. One time at a party, everyone except for me was plastered, and Neurotica decides to shout, "All men are trash!" at the top of her lungs. All the women joined in and shouted, "Yeah, fuck men!" in unison while sloshing their drinks everywhere. My eyes darted around the room to see the reactions of the dudes present, but no one seemed to care. Neurotica must have seen the sour expression on my face because she followed up with, "But not you, Sparky." What do you mean, not me? Are you trying to save face? Is there something special about me? Do you not see me as a man at all? Hold that last thought for later. These are the questions that float around my head when I think about this situation. Some individuals will find and adopt the BP because of situations like this. There's a certain level of bitterness that arises when you see someone from another gender blatantly disrespecting yours. And yes, I'm aware that some guys within the BP community can be deeply disrespectful towards women. All I'm saying is that some of this hostility may be reactionary, but that doesn't make it right. You can't justify making assumptions about an entire group simply because individuals within that group make similar generalizations about you. Even having said that, it's difficult for me not to feel that bitterness. This whole scenario wasn't just one woman shouting misandrous things. The whole room of women agreed with her and cheered her on. I just try to remind myself that returning fire with vitriol will only make things worse. I do wish that I had the courage to politely speak up at that party, though. Obviously, they shouldn't have been saying things like that, and it annoys me that it's become somewhat acceptable to trash men in public nowadays. People would justify it saying, "Oh, maybe she has had bad experiences with men in the past." That may be true, but it's not a good excuse. I was sexually assaulted by my bullies in elementary school, but I don't go around being a jerk to people because of it. Hell, I'm not even allowed to talk about it because I was born a guy. And this is another strange thing that a lot of BP'd individuals have in common, believe it or not. Experiencing SA and feeling like men aren't allowed to openly talk about their negative experiences without being dismissed or condemned for it. Unfortunately, this bitterness that I speak of isn't isolated to gender dynamics or straight relationships either. I used to work in retail, and one of my coworkers was a petite gay man, and he was having a very difficult time finding love. He would meet guys through dating apps expecting to find a long-term relationship, but they would turn into hookups or he would get cheated on. It was even causing him health issues because one time he contracted an STI. At one point, I overheard him say, "I don't think there's such thing as love." And the even scarier thing is, sometimes I feel like he was right. My parents have a strained relationship. Saying that will sound like an understatement, though, especially after I tell you what I'm about to tell you. Be me. It's Memorial Day weekend, the first 3-day weekend I've had in a while. I figured it would be a good time to work on my music or this channel, but obviously that didn't happen. Instead, my father ended up on my doorstep. Essentially, my mom had thrown him out, but it was more dramatic than that. It ruined my entire weekend. My sister, who was at my parents' place for the summer, was communicating with me via text. She told me that my mom was playing music very loudly, smashing wedding photos and piling up my father's things in the center of the house while screaming about how much she hated him. She was so loud that the dogs were terrified and were cowering in the corner. The crazy thing is, my parents are still together. How? Why? I don't fucking know. After that weekend, my dad says they've worked things out, but I find it hard to believe, as this isn't the first time this kind of thing has happened. You see, both my parents suffer from some sort of mental illness. I'm not entirely sure what's going on with my mother, but it's clear that she has some sort of anger issue. One time, she threw a plate at me, shattering it on the floor and leaving a nasty cut in the linoleum. She said that my voice was whiny, which was crazy because I wasn't even talking to her. And I haven't heard that one before. My father, on the other hand, I think he has schizophrenia or some sort of schizoaffective disorder. The doctors diagnosed him with depression, but in my opinion, they clearly missed something. During my senior year of high school, my father started acting erratically. He would claim that he was being watched, ask all these questions whenever he received an email or phone call, and he was generally on edge and paranoid all the time. At one point, he was diving into the bushes because he thought he was being gang stalked by cars driving throughout the neighborhood. He would ask me if I thought he was crazy, and I'm like, "No shit, I think you're crazy," which is the last thing you should say to a mentally ill person, even if they are fishing for that response. My advice to you, if you're ever in that situation, is to say, "I don't know, I'm not a doctor." Obviously, this development put more of a strain on my parents' relationship. Before this, they would occasionally get into fights about money, but it seemed like every other day they were getting into screaming matches because of my dad's paranoia and absurd behavior. It did die down somewhat, but it never went away. When my dad ended up on my doorstep this past Memorial Day, he had woken up my mom at 4 a.m. to ask her about the significance of the number 4. I think I would crash out too in that situation, but the way she handled it was fucking awful. To a certain extent, I get it though. Imagine marrying someone, starting a family, and then having them mentally fall apart on you. You can't even predict a situation like that. This whole scenario taught me that you can do everything right and still have everything fall apart just because of the sheer unpredictability of the universe. You can't control how other people react to things that happens to them or to you. When I came out as bisexual to my parents unexpectedly because they accused me of doing drugs, they did not take it very well. If you're interested in hearing how that played out, check out my other video titled "Coming Out Ruined My Life." You know, I really thought that since they loved me, they would be understanding of the whole situation. But no, they weren't. Instead, I had to essentially retract my coming out and pretend that I was only interested in women, which is a lie. To this day, they claim, "Oh, we love you, so we're doing this for you," or "We're helping you out." And no, I'm not claiming that my steak is too juicy or my lobster is too buttery. It's nice of them to help me out. Instead, I am questioning whether they actually love me for the real me and not some distorted idea of me that they have in their head. This is what has blackpilled me. What happens if I do fall in love with a man? A trans woman? What happens if I decide I'm a woman myself? Is all that love and support just going to fall away, leaving only vitriol and hatred for who I am? You know, I didn't choose to be bisexual or the other aspects of my queerness. I didn't choose how my parents reacted, and I can't control how other people behave, and I most certainly didn't choose the circumstances I was born into. I hope this helps you understand why I, Sparky Coburn, the static rabbit, feels so stuck. In the end, we're just cattle, right? And if that's the case, then everything is pointless. We are born into this world where we eat, sleep, breed, and then work ourselves to death. And for what? If you're a person like me, you're an outcast who doesn't see the point in continuing the endless cycle, especially if it means people like us are forced to conform to this disgusting system while we are beaten down by those people who are above us in the pecking order. We are essentially forced to support those who hate us. If there is a God, why would he create people like us who do not fit into this system? Or why would he allow this pointless cycle in the first place? Yes, this is a result of humanity's free will, and a core tenet of Christianity is redemption from a fallen world. However, that chance at redemption does not fully excuse the existence of the world. Is all of that suffering actually worth redemption? How much suffering is too much? Maybe redemption isn't worth the suffering at all, and the world should not have been in the first place. If there is a God, we are just his livestock, forced to suffer for his purpose at the hands of his disgusting creatures. Yes, I'm a misanthrope and a bit of an antinatalist as well. I have no desire to pass on my flawed genetics in this world, because that would entail deliberately inflicting suffering on another person against their will. And as I said, I don't support the system in the first place. That's why I relate to the bitter deuteragonist archetype. You know, characters like Jax from the Amazing Digital Circus, Kai Hiwatari from Bakuten Shoot Beyblade, or the Shadow the Hedgehog from Sonic Adventure 2, especially that last one. There's an interesting bit of dialogue in the Japanese version of Sonic Adventure 2 that didn't get properly translated into the English version of the game. When Amy confronts Shadow about not helping the others stop the space colony Ark from destroying the Earth, he says it's utterly pointless. That's when Amy says something very interesting.
意味ならあるよ。確かにあそこでは毎日争い事が絶えないし、あのおじいさんが言った通りわがままで自分勝手でバカな人間ばかりかもしれない。でもみんなあそこで生きてんだよ。一生懸命生きて頑張ってる。いつかみんなでもっと幸せになろうって頑張ってる。それだけでもあの星の未来を信じる意味があるわよ。だからお願い。あの星に住むすべての人たちにチャンスを与えてあげて。その可能性を奪わないで。シャドウ。
She's essentially saying that humanity is flawed, but yet there is a non-zero chance that they can find happiness and create a better world. This is the part of the video where you would expect me to change my mind, but I cannot confidently do that. While what Amy said is compelling, I don't know if it's a good enough reason to do so, as it fails to consider the suffering needed to reach that point. It's good enough to convince Shadow, though. Maybe Amy is right. Maybe the possibility of a better future really is worth preserving. But I don't know. And I don't think anyone can definitively answer whether or not the suffering required to reach the future is worth it. Hell, suffering isn't even something you can quantify. I don't know is probably the most honest answer I can give. I don't know whether we're cattle, whether there's some greater purpose behind all of this, or whether we're just animals trying to find meaning in a universe that doesn't owe us one. That doesn't make me comfortable, though. And much like Michael Stipe, I think I've said too much, yet not enough. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and tell me your thoughts below. I am interested to see which audience this video resonates with. To be honest, I'm not sure what my target audience is, but that's the cost of being authentic. With that, it's been Sparky Coburn, the static rabbit on Sparky Speaks. Maybe one day my skis will carve a path to heaven, but I've got a long lift line ahead of me.